Hello, it's John Heaton, and today I'm going to review this album from Ringo Starr, which is called Ringo. It came out at the back end of 1973, and it's easily his most commercially successful album. I'm not quite sure what position it reached in the charts, but it had several hit singles on it, including two top 10 US singles, Photograph and You're 16. He calls this his first solo album proper, but he'd actually released two solo albums in 1970, Sentimental Journey, which is an album of standards, and Boat Copes of Blues, which was an album of country songs. And they're both creditable, but this one was his first kind of pop album. And he's ably assisted by a lot of people, including the other three Beatles, and including other such notable people like Harry Nilsson and Mark Bolan, and the band as well, Robbie Robertson and co. So this album is on the Apple label, although it's got a nice sleeve which is Ringo with the star shape, with the small apple there. This is a UK pressing. And very nice packaging in this album, because Klaus Bormann, the guy who designed the Revolver Beatles album cover, has basically done illustrations for all of the songs. So this is I'm the Greatest, for example. And I won't show you all of them, but Have You Seen My Baby? It's great, very amusing. You're 16 is as good a one as well. And I'll just show you something at the beginning here. This inside page is signed by Barbara Bach. She signed it Barbara Bach Starkey. In fact, when I handed her this album to sign, she said, well, this album's got nothing to do with me. This is before I met Ringo, or Richie, I can't forget how she referred to him. And I said, actually, in truth, I said, well, it's better than nothing. And then I said, oh, I didn't mean to say that. Sorry if you were offended. And she goes, no problem. She signed it. So that was a bit embarrassing. But anyway, I met her outside Ringo's office in 1987. And she did sign it for me in the end. But back to the album. I'm the Greatest, the first track, written by John. And this is the closest to a Beatles reunion that there was, because John wrote it and he's on piano. George Harrison was invited or turned up at the studio and contributed guitar, and Ringo's on vocals and drums. And one of the only reasons Paul wasn't there is because he couldn't get a visa into the US at the time due to some marijuana convictions. So pretty close to a Beatles reunion, and a very Beatlesque sound on this track. Particularly Harrison's guitar, very distinctive, and Lennon's backing vocals, very noticeable. So the next track is Have You Seen My Baby, which is written by Randy Newman, but is helped on this version by Mark Bolan doing a superb guitar solo. This is the back cover, by the way. I love this track. It could have been a single, actually, perhaps. Maybe it's a tad repetitive. But it's a good track and a good dance number as well. Photograph is next, which was credited, I think, to Harrison Starkey together. Yeah, I think it's credited that way. Yeah, Starkey Harrison. Although, if you were being cynical, you could probably say that George wrote more than half of it. In the same way that he may have written a good portion of Octopus's Garden, which he wasn't credited for. But this is great. This is a great George song, Ringo song, whatever you want to call it. And George plays guitar in it and sings backing vocals very distinctively. And this makes it sound very Beatley as well, which is no bad thing. This was a big hit single on both sides of the Atlantic. The next track is Sunshine Life for Me, written by George, and the band, all the members of the band are on formed the backing band, pun not intended, and but it's not a great track. It's not a great track. George singing nice backing vocals and stuff. It's sort of nice country loose feel, but it's one of the weakest on the albums in my opinion. Richard Perry, I have to say, is behind this album. He produces, and he's very good at picking the right cover versions for Ringo to sing. And he did the same again for Goodnight Vienna, which was the following album, perhaps not quite so successfully, although there were some great songs on that album. On this album, the covers he chooses, well, Have You Seen My Baby was a great success earlier on side one, and You're 16, which was a hit for Johnny Burnett in 1962, I think, is a great success, and this was a huge hit single. And Ringo, I'm not sure if I've heard the original, but I'm pretty sure Ringo kind of almost makes this his own, or puts his own stamp on it anyway. I'd have to check out the original because it'd be interesting to hear it. But this version is great, and Paul McCartney is contributing the mouth sax solo. Nicky Hopkins is on piano. Good old Jim Keltner on drums. Klaus Voormann produces most of the bass on this album. So then we move on to side two, and it's not quite as strong as side one, but it's not far behind. Oh My My is a good opener, written by Vinnie Poncia and Richard Starkey together, and this is a good upbeat dance number. Almost call it disco, although 1973 it's quite early for disco. Tom Scott is on this track, and the normal other members of the band. Billy Preston's on this one actually. He doesn't play on the whole album, but he's on this one. And Vinnie Poncia was later to write many other songs with Ringo, but this is perhaps the best one he wrote with Ringo. Step Lightly is next, which was written solely by Ringo. George didn't even play on this track, I don't think. No, he didn't. And this one is delightful and contributes some tap dancing from Ringo at the end of the song. And this one could easily have fitted on the White Album. You know, snuck away there on side 3 or 4. It's got that kind of feel. Really nice melody. One of Ringo's best compositions. Up there with It Don't Come Easy and Octopus's Garden, I think. 6 O'Clock is Paul's contribution to the album. Gorgeous melody. And Paul and Linda are on hand to provide backing vocals. And I was going to say play a bit of keyboard, but play a bit of keyboard, piano and synthesizer, Paul McCartney. And backing vocals, very prominent. All together, again, making this song sound very Beatley. And the whole impression of this album, with the exception of that country song with the band earlier, is a very Beatley feel. And and commercial as well. That's not a bad word. That's a good word in some instances anyway. And in this one, it's a good word. And this album did well commercially and was received well critically and by the fans. He had great problems trying to match this one in terms of quality. And then Devil Woman is next. Again, another great one written by Ringo and Vinnie Poncia. Upbeat, maybe slightly dodgy, sexist lyrics if we're honest. That's a minor criticism. Nice bass backing vocals from Richard Perry. Which brings us to one of my favourites on the album, the closer, You and Me, Babe, co-written by George Harrison and Mal Evans. This is a really nice closing number to the album, really nice words, really heartfelt song, and Ringo says thanks to everyone who played on the album. And this is the picture that goes with it. So he credits all 3 Beatles by name, along with Jim Keltner and the others, and it was great. I wasn't around at the time, but this album, when I first heard it, it really was heartwarming because it didn't come long after the legal battles and the bad taste that was left after the Beatles split with the court case and with How Do You Sleep and the stuff on Ram. And so it was nice to see Ringo being the bridge over troubled water, if you like, and kind of bringing them, if not together, then bringing them at least so they all appeared on the same album. And you can see them here, the other three, by the way, on the front cover there, along with Yoko. So, that was Ringo, the 1973 album. If you're going to start or invest in at least one Ringo album, this is the one you should get, unless you want to get the greatest hits. But I'm not really a fan of greatest hits, and this album is virtually a greatest hits in itself. So check it out if you haven't already. Thanks for watching. See you next time.